I see the question is, I see the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict as having brought divided in escalation of regional politics in West or Central Asia and Europe, where there was make an polarization between the Turkish bloc and France against the West bloc, in this case France and Europe. How did you view it in terms of multipolar powers on this issue? What is turn going on to the future in the regional power? That's the question, and this question is given for Mr. Ahmed. For Mr. Ahmed, you can answer it. Thank you.
I think we have two other people who are probably more qualified than I am to answer this question, specifically Mr. Zahidov, because I don't want to embarrass the diplomat that we have with us, Mr. Integram Husseinov, and he's a diplomat. So I think this is a more of an analytical question. So I think Mr. Zahidov is more qualified than I am to answer this. But I will just add to this. I mean, I don't see this conflict as in terms of blocks, because anybody who knows this conflict and who knows Azerbaijan also specifically knows that Azerbaijan might be a small country, but this is a country that has many powerful friends, many strong friends. And one of the amazing things one of the things why I also admire Azerbaijan government and Azerbaijan diplomacy is that Azerbaijan, or in these almost 30 years, has created a web of amazing relationships worldwide. So you have countries very far away from Azerbaijan who are very strongly linked to Azerbaijan in terms of economy, in terms of energy, in terms of politics and diplomacy. So Azerbaijan packs, as they say in English, Azerbaijan packs a lot of punch in its diplomacy. So I don't think that we are yet seeing blocks sort of being created. Not yet. I hope not. This conflict does not run longer. The armed conflict. I mean, the conflict is going on for 30 years, but the current armed conflict, I hope it does not extend and go for a longer period and force countries to take sides and create blocks. I hope that does not happen, because this is a very straightforward question. It's a question of occupied territory. It's a question of international law. And I think most of the countries politically stand by the side of Azerbaijan. And it's only a question of enforcing and being more effective to resolve this conflict. So in my view is we are not yet in that area where we see blocks being created, if I understood the question correctly. And I think a better answer to this probably could be given by Mr. Zahidov. And I give the floor to you, Mr. Zahidov, if you would like to answer.
Well, thank you very much for the comprehensive answer on that question. I totally agree with you. Well, first of all, speaking about friends, I'm just wondering, that's a little bit interesting question, because how you define friends in international politics? Because yesterday's friends can have problems today and can be friends again tomorrow. So therefore, the definition of friend is a little bit complex here, and meaning in respect to the Turkish bloc. What do you mean by stating Turkish bloc? Because Turkey is a member of NATO, for example, and NATO is a military bloc, we know it. But nevertheless, within NATO, there are such countries as France, for example, whose stance and policy absolutely contradicts with the interests and with the stance of Azerbaijan. For example, France is one of the states which openly supports Armenia in this conflict, in spite of Armenians being aggressor. Yeah. So therefore, we can't. It will be much more complex if we try to define it in terms of friends of Turkey and so on. And but definitely there are countries which are interested, let's say interested states in this matter, which are, for example, regional actors. We can name them Russia, for example, Iran, and Turkey, and each of these states has, let's say, various position on this matter, and also definitely United States and Western and European states as well, and we can include some other actors as further Pakistan and Asian states and so on. But most importantly, I have to mention Russia, Turkey, Iran, and then, of course, Europe and the United States, which have a particular interest in this matter. And officially, all these states recognized territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. Well, that's an official point of view. That's, in fact, we know that some of these countries indeed support Armenia. We know that some of these countries sell weapons to Armenia through different channels. And in fact, we know that some of these countries pursue double standards against their even against the fair position of Azerbaijan. So therefore, official statements definitely don't always overlap with the real intentions of countries. This is how actually the realistic school of international relations view it. As again, famous Hans Morgenthau put it, there is a distinction between the moral aspirations of states and the real intentions of those states. So therefore, based on official statements, you can never actually know whether this state is a friend or whether this state actually does have certain goals and is not a friend of Azerbaijan and so on.
Thank you, Mr. Sultan, for additional answer. And maybe Mr. Intigam wanna add some point for this question.
Yeah, thank you for question. Again, also as previous colleagues, Mr. Ahmed and Mr. Sultan mentioned very important moments. First of all, it is important to clarify what Darlis, what dear Darlis mean when he say or she say Turkish bloc or French bloc or the Western bloc, in case France, for example, here. So Mr. Sultan made a good point that both France and Turkey are members of NATO bloc. So they are in one specific bloc. They are together. But in this specific case, in Nagorno-Karabakh, there is no, of course, such a blocks politically or militarily, as Mr. Ahmed also said. So, but yeah, of course, there are spread of interests where Turkey supports morally and politically supports Azerbaijan, while France, in this case, supporting Armenia. So, but it doesn't mean that there is such a bloc or such a Western bloc or Turkish bloc or separation of blocs. So, my answer on this question is in this point. So, that's it.